Most people walk through life like passengers on a train they didn't choose. They move in loops. Same thoughts, same habits, same outcomes. Convinced that who they are is who they must remain. I'm not smart enough. That's just the way I am. I've never been good at that. These aren't just sentences, they're chains. Self-imposed chains. But here's the truth that most people never get told: the brain is not a finished structure. It's a living, shifting, growing force. It is not fixed. It is not final. It is waiting on you. Science calls it neuroplasticity, but you don't need to be a neuroscientist to understand what that means. Simply put, your brain changes. It adapts. Every time you learn something new, face something uncomfortable, repeat a new habit, think a new thought, you are not just making a choice. You are shaping the wiring of your mind. You are forming new pathways, new beliefs, and new levels of identity. And the most powerful part of this is you get to decide what gets wired in. This is why belief is not just a feeling. Belief is fuel. If you believe you're limited, your brain will make sure you find proof. You'll act small, you'll hesitate, you'll doubt, and your brain will reinforce it. It will say, "See, I told you." But if you dare to believe bigger, if you dare to say, "I can learn, I can grow, I can become more," then your brain starts rewiring itself to match that belief. Suddenly, your actions start aligning with courage. Your decisions start leaning toward opportunity. And those once tightly locked doors in your life begin to creak open. Repetition is the next ingredient. You don't become who you want to be by thinking something once. You don't build muscle by going to the gym one time. You build by returning. Again and again and again. The brain responds to what is consistent. Thoughts repeated become beliefs. Actions repeated become identity. So when you say, "I am confident," your brain doesn't believe it the first time because it remembers when you weren't. But if you say it every day, if you act on it, speak like it, move like it, even in the face of doubt, your brain starts to shift. It rewires the old story. It weakens the old patterns. And before long, that identity is no longer something you're trying to be. It's who you are. Bold action is the activator. It's the signal to your brain that you mean business. Because belief without action is just a dream, and repetition without courage is just a routine. It's the moment you step into the unknown, despite the fear, that your brain starts learning something new. The first time you speak up when you usually stay silent. The first time you try when you usually give up. That's when the transformation happens. Your brain gets shocked out of its comfort zone and realizes, "Oh, we're doing this now." You are not trapped by genetics, upbringing, or history. You are not doomed by your past mistakes. You are not stuck with who you were last year, last month, or even yesterday. You are constantly becoming. And the brain, as complex as it is, follows a simple principling. It follows you. It follows your focus. It follows your thoughts. It follows your actions. If you feed it fear, it will breed more fear. If you feed it strength, it will produce more strength. And if you repeat that strength, reinforce that belief, and take bold, relentless action toward it, you will not just change your mind, you will rebuild it. Most people are walking around with yesterday's programming. But you don't have to. You can become the architect of your own mind. You can rewire the narrative. You can shift from limitation to liberation, from excuses to execution, from hesitation to momentum. It all begins with a decision to stop treating your brain like a cage and start treating it like a tool, a weapon, a gateway. You can change, you can evolve, you can become something more, not by waiting, not by wishing, but by acting as if the change is already in motion. Because when you move as though you believe it, when you speak it, live it. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a dream and reality. It just follows your lead. From the moment we take our first breath, the world starts writing our story for us. Parents, teachers, friends, media, all feeding us narratives about who we are, what we can do, how far we can go. You're too quiet. You're too loud. You're not athletic. You're not smart enough. Stay in your lane. Be realistic. Those messages, repeated enough times, don't just become noise. They become internal scripts. Scripts that loop in our minds like broken records. Scripts that tell us, this is who you are, and worse, this is all y'all ever be. But here's the truth they never taught you: those scripts aren't facts. They're opinions. They're projections. They're other people's limits, not yours. Somewhere along the way, someone handed you a pen and told you it was theirs to hold. But it never was. You were always meant to be the author of your own identity. And no matter how many pages were written without your consent, the next chapter is still blank. Still yours to create. The stories you've been told about what you can't do, what you're not made for, what you'll never achieve, are not truths. They're lies dressed as guidance. Sometimes the people who loved you the most said those things to protect you, not to hurt you, but to keep you safe from failure, from rejection, from disappointment. But their fear isn't your destiny. Their comfort zone isn't your ceiling. If you continue to live in the limits they gave you, you'll never touch the life that belongs to you. Maybe someone told you're not good at speaking, so you've stayed quiet your whole life when deep inside, your voice was built to move rooms. Maybe you were told you weren't smart, so you never tried to go further, when in reality, you just hadn't been taught how to learn your way. Maybe you've been labeled too emotional, too intense, too much. When the truth is, your sensitivity is your gift, your intensity is your drive, and your depth is your superpower. Every label that tried to shrink you was rooted in someone else's fear or misunderstanding, not your truth. You have the power to rewrite every one of those stories. But you must confront them first. You have to sit down with those lies and say, where did this come from? Was it one sentence from a parent in a moment of stress? Was it a teacher who didn't understand your mind? Was it a friend who betrayed you and made you doubt your worth? Identify the origin, because when you know where the story started, you can begin to strip it of its power. Then you replace it. You pick up the pen and write something new, not with fantasy or false hope, but with real, grounded, powerful intention. If the old story said, you always mess things up, your new story becomes, I learn fast and I grow stronger every time. If the old story said, you're not made for success, your new story becomes, define success and I build it one step at a time. And every time the old voice tries to return, you talk back. You remind it who's writing now. You remind it that your future will not be dictated by someone else's fear. This power is not found in some secret formula. It's found in awareness, in choice, in persistence. You have to be willing to challenge what you've accepted as truth. You have to be bold enough to stand in front of that mirror and say, I've been living someone else's version of me, and that ends today. Because the longer you stay in the wrong story, the more your potential suffocates beneath someone else's narrative, no matter how long you've been living by those limits. 10 years, 20, a lifetime. The rewrite can begin in an instant, not because the world changes, but because you decide to change your script. You decide that your voice is louder than the echoes of the past. You decide that your vision is stronger than their doubt. And you commit to living by what you know is true about you. Not what they said, not what they assumed, But what you choose to believe and become pain is something we're taught to run from. Since childhood, we've been conditioned to see pain as something to avoid, to numb, to silence, or to bury deep where no one else can see it. Whether it's physical pain, emotional scars, mental wounds, or the ache of disappointment, the message is always the same: hide it, ignore it, escape it. But pain doesn't disappear just because you turn your back. It waits. It lingers. It shapes you quietly or loudly, depending on what you do with it. The truth is, pain is not your enemy. It's your rawest, most honest teacher. And if you're willing to listen, it becomes the birthplace of transformation. Pain is a signal. It tells you something isn't aligned. It's the universe pulling you out of autopilot. When life is easy, when everything is comfortable, you rarely ask deep questions. You don't challenge your patterns. You don't stretch yourself. But when pain hits, whether from heartbreak, failure, loss, betrayal, or regret, something shifts. You wake up, you stop moving through life as a passenger and start asking, why am I here? What is this teaching me? What now? That discomfort, that disruption, it's a doorway. Most people just never walk through it. There's a common belief that pain breaks people, but that's only half the truth. Pain breaks what's weak in you. The illusions, the lies, the ego, the comfort zones that kept you stuck. It breaks the version of you that was no longer serving your highest growth. And what's left after the breaking is truth. What's left is the core, the part of you that's real, unshakable, and capable of rising in ways you never imagined. Pain introduces you to the real you. Think about it. The people who are strong, resilient, grounded, they weren't born that way. They were forged. Every scar carries a story. Every lesson came through fire. That strength you admire in others wasn't handed to them. It was carved out of loss, disappointment, and perseverance. It was built in the silence when they had to keep going with no applause, no support, no guarantee. They took their pain, and instead of letting it destroy them, they turned it into fuel. But that choice is yours to make. Pain can either imprison you or empower you. It can become your excuse or your energy. You can let it be the reason you stop trying, or the very reason you rise harder, stronger, wiser. The difference lies not in the pain itself, but in how you process it. Will you numb it, deny it, or turn your back on it? Or will you face it, sit with it, understand it, and use it as leverage to evolve? Pain carries information. It shows you where you're still bleeding, where the wound needs to be healed, where the belief needs to be challenged. When you avoid it, you miss the wisdom. You keep repeating cycles because you never took the time to listen to what the pain was really trying to show you. But when you lean in, when you're brave enough to ask, what is this pain trying to teach me about who I am and where I need to go? That's when the transformation begins. Transformation doesn't happen in comfort. Growth doesn't take root in safety. It begins the moment you realize that what you went through wasn't meant to bury you, but to build you. You weren't meant to remain shattered. You were meant to rise with intention. Stronger not just in muscle, but in mind. Sharper not just in focus, but in wisdom. Wiser not just in experience, but in empathy. Pain doesn't just change your path. It changes your perception. It teaches you to see deeper, feel deeper, live deeper. It strips away the noise and forces you to ask who you're becoming, not just what you're surviving. Some of the most powerful transformations are born not out of inspiration, but desperation. When everything is stripped away, the job, the relationship, the identity, and all you're left with is pain, you have two choices: let it bury you or let it break you open. One leads to cycles and silence. The other leads to purpose and power. Pain has a strange way of giving you clarity. If you're willing to meet it without resistance, you begin to realize what matters, what you truly want, who you no longer wish to be, what you will no longer tolerate. And what you're now ready to fight for your mind is not neutral. It doesn't just sit quietly and receive, life absorbs. It reflects, it repeats. What you put into it, it multiplies. Your thoughts are shaped by what you allow in, by the voices you listen to, the media you consume, the people you surround yourself with, the words you speak to yourself in silence. And whether you realize it or not, your mind is constantly being fed. The question is, are you feeding it power or are you feeding it fear? Every single day, your environment is talking to your brain. It's teaching you how to think about yourself, about the world, about your future. If you wake up and the first thing consumed is negativity, if your conversations are filled with doubt, and limitation, if you constantly replay your failures and fears, your brain starts to believe that's the full picture. It starts seeing life through a narrow, filtered lens, one based on lack, danger, resistance. And soon you don't just feel fear, you start living in it. You begin to make decisions not from strength, but from survival. You hesitate more. You dream less. You shrink instead of stretch. But the same way fear can be fed, so can power. And power isn't some magical force you're born with. It's a mindset that you build one input at a time. Every time you choose to read something that uplifts you, every time you speak words of yourself to instead of criticism, every time you take a bold step forward in spite of fear, you are feeding your mind strength. And what you feed grows. Your outcome in life is not determined just by your skill set, your background, or your opportunities. It is largely determined by the mental environment you create for yourself. Because two people can face the same challenge. One will break down and one will break through. The difference isn't the obstacle. It's what their mind has been trained to believe. It's what they've been feeding themselves long before the challenge showed up. One has been rehearsing weakness, the other has been rehearsing strength. The mind is like soil. Whatever seeds you plant, it will grow. If you plant fear, self-doubt, hopelessness, that's what will take root. If you plant vision, discipline, and faith, those will grow too. But soil doesn't judge the seed. It just multiplies it. That's why being intentional about your input is non-negotiable. You don't get to feed your brain garbage and expect greatness to come out. You don't get to saturate your thoughts with what could go wrong and hope to walk in confidence. If you want to rise, your mental diet must be as disciplined as any training program. What goes in eventually comes out. In your actions, in your attitude, in your results. Too many people are waiting to feel powerful before they act powerful. But power doesn't show up first. You build it. You speak it. You train your brain to see possibilities where others see limits. You make a habit of exposing yourself to people, ideas, and messages that reinforce your strength, not your fears. You challenge the thoughts that shrink you. You replace them, not once, not occasionally, daily. Because fear is persistent. It doesn't take breaks. And neither can you. Your internal world is louder than anything the outside world can throw at you. The way you talk to yourself, the thoughts you rehearse in the privacy of your mind, they shape the choices you make. They set the ceiling on what you think is possible. And if you're not conscious of what you're feeding yourself mentally, you'll unknowingly train your brain to work against you. You'll become your own limitation. But when you decide to feed your mind with power, with courage, with truth, with a relentless vision, you begin to rewrite the program. You can feel fear and still feed power. You can experience setbacks and still choose a mindset of momentum. But you have to be deliberate. No more casual consumption. No more letting the loudest voice win. You become what you dwell on. You become what you repeat. And if you want to step into the life you were built for, it starts by asking one simple but powerful question. What am I feeding my mind right now? Life doesn't just happen to you. It responds to you. Every single day, you are given moments, small, silent, and seemingly insignificant choices that shape the direction of your life. The world tries to convince you that change comes in giant leaps, but real transformation begins in the quiet decision to choose differently in the present moment. In every second, you are either stepping forward into growth or falling back into comfort. You are either evolving or repeating. And the life you wake up to tomorrow is being built by the choices you're making right now. It's easy to believe that our circumstances define us, that we're stuck because of our past, our upbringing, our environment, or the way we've always been. But the deeper truth is this: your circumstances are real, but your response to them is more powerful. Growth doesn't ask where you came from. It asks where you're willing to go. And it starts the moment you stop outsourcing responsibility for your life and start recognizing that your choices, your attitude, your focus, your effort are the blueprint for everything that follows. Growth doesn't wait for the perfect time. It doesn't require permission. It begins when you look at your current situation, no matter how broken, stuck, or confusing, and say, I'm willing to do something different. That something doesn't have to be massive. It could be choosing not to react in anger, choosing to get up and try again, choosing to speak up when you've stayed silent, choosing to believe in your potential when everything around you is telling you to doubt it. Every one of those decisions, though small on the surface, has the power to change everything. People often think growth is about reaching goals. But growth is not just about what you achieve. It's about who you become in the process. The version of you that is waiting on the other side of discomfort is stronger, wiser, and more resilient than the one who stays safe. But to meet that version, you have to make different decisions. You have to choose the path that stretches you, not the one that soothes you. The path that demands effort, not excuses. The path that requires faith, not fear. Every challenge you face offers you two road zones, the easy road and the growth road. The easy road feels better in the moment. It lets you stay the same, avoid the hard conversations, skip the extra work, numb the emotion, delay the dream. But that road never leads to fulfillment. It only leads to repetition. The same problems, the same frustrations, the same feeling of knowing deep down that you're capable of more, but choosing not to reach for it. The growth road is tougher. It's uncomfortable. It demands honesty and accountability. But it's the only road that leads to change. You don't need to control the future to create it. You just need to master this moment, this choice. The present is your power. What you do right now determines who you become. That means every time you say, I'll do it later, you're postponing the life that could already be in motion. That means every time you choose to react the same way, think the same way, you live the same way, you are choosing to stay exactly where you are. And if that place is not where you want to be, you have to interrupt the pattern with new decisions. Growth doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be willing. It needs you to stop pretending you don't know what to do and start acting on what you already know. Deep down, you know what the right choice looks like. It's the one that challenges you, the one that demands you to rise, the one that stretches your capacity, the one that doesn't always feel good, but feels aligned. And the more often you choose that path, the more momentum you build. The more you train your brain to expect more, the more you realize that you're not stuck. You were just in the habit of choosing comfort over courage. Growth is not a one-time decision. It's a habit of choosing better again and again. When you feel tired, when you feel afraid, when you feel unqualified, especially then, because that's when change actually happens. Not when you feel ready, but when you choose to move anyway. Not when everything is perfect, but when you decide that your future matters more than your fear. That's the decision that rewrites your life. Not overnight, but over time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time, until who you are longer looks like who you were are not powerless. You are not defined by your past, your pain, or the limits placed on you by others. You are defined by your decision to rise, moment by moment, choice by choice. Your brain is not fixed. It's waiting for you to take control. Your story is not finished. You hold the pen. Your pain is not your prison. It's your permission to transform. What you feed your mind becomes your future. And every second you are alive is a chance to grow. Not someday, but now. This is not motivation for the moment. This is a reminder of who you've always had the power to become. The shift begins the moment you say, enough with survival, I choose evolution. Enough with replaying fear, I choose to rewire my mind. Enough with waiting, I choose to become. This is the line, this is the moment. And after this, your brain and your life will never be the same